Hello, and welcome to the Wooden Ball Show. I'm your host, Dave Ball, also known as Blinston on Reddit and @Blinston1 on Twitter. And like always, I am joined by Blake, who is known as @ChatMyKirk on Twitter and BTownBomb on Reddit. And today we are joined by Josh. You can follow Josh on Twitter at I'm Not Joshin' Ya, and on Reddit at Xanadu the Immortal. I think that's how you
Yes.
say it. Yes.
hmm
So how you guys doing?
Well, I'm doing fine.
Oh yeah, doing pretty good.
That's good. So we have a good show going on tonight, today, because it's kind of daytime now. It's going to be, we're covering the Flyers and the Tampa Bay Lightning. But before we get into that, we kind of have a little quick hits around the NHL section to go over. With the only real topic being the talks of an expansion happening in which 4 new teams would be joining the NHL. A team in Seattle, a team in Quebec City, a team in Las Vegas, and a second team in Toronto. What are your guys' thoughts on this?
I'm not sure it could work out in Las Vegas. Uh, I think it couldn't work out there because of the housing market and how it's so expensive to buy houses there. You can't get a good fan base in a place where people have a difficult time buying houses in more of a kind of a touristy city that Las Vegas is.
Mm-hmm.
Now
Yeah.
the one in that list I'd like to see the most. I'm probably going with the majority here, maybe, but Seattle definitely.
I think Seattle definitely could probably house a pretty good team and have a
They're
very good, passionate fan base behind them.
they're a very good sports town. They love their Seahawks, they love their Mariners, they love their Sounders, and they're still very, very bitter about the Supersonics moving away.
Mm-hmm.
About to say, they did love their Supersonics.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, I think they could work. Quebec City kind of has grounds to be seen because when the Nordiques, before the Nordiques left, they didn't really have a strong following, from what I remember. That could have just been because they
Yeah.
were in a very good, like a very like ran very good. I guess how to say it. Seems that they
yeah.
were constantly in need of money, so that
Yeah,
might
I
have had
think
something to do with
what
it.
they're relying on now is just historical precedent for the
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
most part.
And it'd be good for Montreal too to revive the rivalry and get an even stronger following for Montreal.
Mm-hmm. I
Yeah.
mean, we're putting a city back in Quebec. Those fans have already moved on to other teams, probably. Like,
Yeah.
what team would they want to flock back to the team, or would they stay with their new allegiance?
Hmm.
Yeah.
And the same with
And
but
then,
in the fourth city. Go ahead, Josh. Sorry.
and then of course, Toronto.
Yeah,
I mean,
like the
at
fourth
least
city.
Toronto could finally win the cup.
No, I just think Toronto's that cursed that even the second team wouldn't be able to do it. They have 2 chances, and neither of them would be able to do it. But yeah. But wouldn't a second Toronto market team be able to work?
No.
Because this team has been around for a long time, the Toronto Maple Leafs, and they've had a long following. Would those fans be able to jump to a new Toronto team?
I'm sure there's still a bunch of loyal Maple Leafs fans out there. They're just waiting for when the day finally arrives.
But they're no longer
Yeah.
a joke.
I mean, say what you will about the team, but the fans definitely are loyal to them.
Oh, they are definitely, yeah.
Hmm.
Um, I just think the issue is finding the market in the first place for another team, but also where in the world are they going to put the team? Because I don't know of any arenas in the greater Toronto area that they could use.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Though they could probably find something.
And I
I mean,
don't
they have
think,
till 2017, which is when this would be proposed to start.
yeah,
So,
uh, I don't think it'd work out to have an NHL team share an arena. It can work in the NFL. It can
It kind of works in the NBA,
kind of
mhm.
but that's a
mainly,
lot of stress on the arena faculty or the arena schedule planning.
Oh yeah,
yeah. And
they
there's
can't.
some arenas like the American Airlines Center in Dallas. The Stars and the Mavericks play there, but they manage to coordinate things. But I'm not sure
Mhm.
you can have two of the same sport, two NBA, two with the big exception being Staples Center, of course. But Other than
Right.
that, I don't see how that could work, especially in Toronto.
Yeah, I don't see it happening at all. I just think that was kind of a use to get kind of a clickbait names.
Oh
The
Yeah.
only
yeah,
ones I could see from this list happening are Seattle and maybe Quebec City. Though Quebec City doesn't make sense because it is an East Coast team. Would
Yeah.
you? How would that work?
They'd probably move Detroit over.
Oh, Detroit wouldn't be happy with that.
no.
No. Are you kidding? They'd have to go back to the Central. That would be hysterical, but my
Actually, that would
God.
be awesome. But you don't want to. They don't want to piss off Detroit for some reason.
Uh,
Yeah, we'll see what happens with that. I mean, this was pushed. Like the NHL did come out and say this is not proposed to be happening, though that could just be lip service until it's actually announced, for all we know.
yeah, I'm fairly certain that they do have an expansion plan, but
Hmm.
they're just releasing false information at this point, trying to just, lead people away from the actual stuff.
I mean, they have to have an expansion plan with the way the conferences are lined up.
Oh God, yes. Please, I wish we could get the Central, so just get that out of the way. Sorry, Blake, but your team's too powerful.
In the regular season, at least.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
I mean, as long as you don't meet up with the Blackhawks, you're generally good.
Oh,
Yeah, we'll see what happens there, though.
But yeah, no. Actually, what I think would be kind of cool is if they did like the old Campbell Wales system, like
hmm
did away with the East-West and just entirely mixed it.
That could be nice. But that would be. But they would break up rivalries with that, and that's what the NHL doesn't want to do.
True.
I mean, if you think about it, with the way that system was working out, the Flyers and the Penguins were in different conferences, I believe, for that,
Yeah.
and they. I mean, that's one of the biggest money draws right now, and you want them to play as much as possible. I mean, Boston and Montreal might be put in different divisions. Like, you would know teams that are together in those divisions. So,
Yeah. Well, I mean, they did break up the Chicago-Detroit rivalry with the
hmm
most recent realignment. So, I mean, I don't know. Well, I guess we'll just see how it goes.
that's true. So now heading into topic 2, which is the interview with the Flyers, which I will be answering the questions for that, and Blake will be interviewing me. So I guess we can start that off.
Oh yes, here we go. Beginning the very, pardon me, the very exciting topic for you, the faithful listeners, as our very own Dave Ball here goes from interviewer to interviewee. Yeah, that's how it works.
That's
I just
right.
had I just had to double check on that one. Yeah, but that's how it works. hmm
So,
Anyway, Dave, we'll begin with a discussion of the previous season,
hmm
and to begin, we'll kind of break the. It'll just be a kind of a just a basic overview, just to introduce us into the season that was, and we'll break it into two parts. We'll begin by discussing the regular season, then we'll move on to the playoff series against the New York Rangers. Starting with the regular season, the
hmm
biggest story was Philadelphia gets off to a rather slow
very rough
start,
start.
to
Very
very
rough.
rough start, yeah. And
Yes.
the captain, Claude Giroux, he makes what is known as the
The promise.
promise.
The promise.
Yes, the promise.
Which he said we're going to make the playoffs. We're a playoff team, and our Lord and Savior does not lie to us.
Yes.
He led us to Jerusalem, and he will do it again.
So that was the
I'm
biggest
sorry,
thing
that's the
to
first time.
occur. Oh, so that
Okay,
was the main
that was
thing.
good. That was good.
That was the main thing to occur in the regular season, at least. Kind of go over how that regular season went from your perspective.
Well, it started off. We had high hopes for this team. We knew that the depth chart on defense was kind of iffy, but we knew we could be able to deal with it. Kimo Timonen was coming back, so we had him. We had Braden Coburn, who was a very very good underrated defenseman. Two of them could anchor our first pairing. Our second pairing, which would have been Mark Streit and Nicholas Grossman, which Mark Streit is very offensively dynamic, and he was able to produce a lot of offense for us. He was our He was our highest scoring defenseman. So we had very good defense, but it was average at best. Heading into the end of the season, we thought that it would be able to do something, but the preseason kind of what got off to a really bad start. We only won one game via shootout. We lost the rest, and then 3 games into the season, we got fired our head coach Peter Laviolette after a few years with us, and we put our assistant coach Craig Berube up into the head coach position. We didn't put him as an interim coach. We put him as a head coach. We assigned him officially as that. So uh, it kind of was a really bad start. Claude Giroux then made the promise, and 15 games into the season, he finally scored his first goal against the Edmonton Oilers, and it kind of sparked the team and turned it around big time, in which you saw them have a massive run towards the end of the season, where Claude Giroux somehow went from having, I think it was like 3 points or something in the first 15 games, or 7 points in the first 15 games, to becoming third in points in the NHL. And yeah, that's kind of how our regular season went. We came back from behind in the third period 11 times, I think, some of which we were being shut out into the third period, and we somehow turned it around. And one of the biggest reasons for all this was our goaltending. For the first time in a long time, our goaltending was kind of saving grace, which is weird to say. Steve Mason played very good this year. Kind of had he had a great start, a slow middle, but after talk with Bernie Perrant, he turned his game around and really kicked it up towards down the stretch, which led us into that playoffs.
And that would be the segue into the playoffs. The first round matchup against the New York Rangers.
Mm-hmm.
Went to a very 7-game series. It was back and forth through the whole 7 games. One team would win the first game, the other would win the next, and that's how that's how the whole thing went. The big question heading into the playoff series was how the Flyers would fare without Steve Mason being in there for the first couple games.
Because of Jason Megna, I think that's his name. He took a run at who was the defense? He took a run at Andrew MacDonald and threw him into Steve Mason, putting him down with a concussion for the first 3 games. So we had to start Ray Emery, and Ray Emery's a very solid goaltender, very good for backup, but he is very bad going side to side, and the Rangers knew that. So they were able to capitalize on that. And
oh yes,
because he had his he had his hips problems, which is what almost ended his career, and he had to deal with that for a while. But Steve Mason was able to come back, and he played a very, very good series. He was our best player. Our team did not play up to any type of standards we had for them. Claude Giroux, I think, only scored empty net goals. Jakub Voracek maybe scored a couple. It wasn't the Flyers that we thought they would be when they came into the playoffs. They looked kind of out of breath. They weren't very lively. The only lively game they really had was Game 6, which is when we, I think, won us like 5-2 or something to force Game 7. So.
Alrighty. Well, now we'll get into the positional or the unit breakdown portion of the season in review. And what we'll do here is you'll just kind of discuss your thoughts on the offense, defense, goaltending, and coaching. And at the end of your thoughts, whenever you're finished, I'll ask you to give a kind of a school grade, A plus, B, things like that, how you felt of their performance from the last season. And we'll begin with the forward depth. The main guy there, Claude Giroux, he puts the team on his back, essentially, and leads them into the playoffs. But there's also a cast of there's also a cast of several other good players there. Jakub Voracek, Scott Hartnell, that ginger line there.
Our flying ginger line. I loved them.
hmm And I know during the season you told me before, Dave, that you felt that Matt Reed, I think, was one of the more underrated forwards on the roster.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah, just kind of from there, just kind of go into the forward depth.
Okay. We have actually a very, very deep forward depth. We have Vincent LeCavalier as our second line center. If our Brain Shen is our third line, well, Vincent LeCavalier should be our second line center. Brain Shen had ended up moving to that spot partway through the season, and with LeCavalier moving to the left wing and kind of bouncing all around the lineup until he ended up in fourth line. We have Sean Couturier as our third line center, which he is a very, very good defensive defenseman. And only at, I think he's 21, 22, something like that. He's going to be even getting even better soon, and probably will be up in talks for Selke Trophy anytime soon. Uh, Claude, as you said before, Claude Giroux, Jakub Voracek, and Scott Hartnell were our top line. They were our most dynamic top line. They controlled a lot of play. Scott Hartnell, he had a tough time in the beginning keeping up with that line because he is not as fast of a skater as they are. So he was kind of bounced around a little bit before he finally settled into that top line. It happened around the same time Claude Giroux kind of started to kick off and get over what was probably that hand injury he sustained over the offseason. And with Jakub Voracek, Jakub Voracek is really good at entering the zone, so that's something he can do very well. Heading into our second line, it was Vincent LeCavalier and Brandon Shen kind of switching off for second line center, and then Wayne Simmons on the right side. And Wayne Simmons scored the most goals for the Flyers, I think, this season at 29 goals, which was his highest goals scoring to date. And he is a very, very good, underrated power forward in the league. No one really kind of expects him to score as much as he does for some reason. He is very good right in front of the net during the power play. Him and Scott Hartnell on that center line were in the center of the power play were very, very awesome to watch work together. Heading into the third line, we had Sean Couturier, Matt Reed, and Michael Raffel were kind of our third line this year. With Michael Raffel actually kind of bounced around a little bit between the different lines. At some points he was on the first line, and at some points he was on the third line. But the three of them are very good defensively. Matt Reed does not get enough credit throughout the league for what he can do. He put up over 20 goals this year. He is part of our top PK unit. He is part of, I think, our second power play unit. He can do it all. If you need Matt Reed to do something, he can do it. He is one of the better defensive people on our team. Him and Couturier are very good together. They work well together. They have such chemistry. And our fourth line was nothing really special. It was Jay Rosehill, Adam Hall, and I forget who else it was. Zach Ronaldo. That's who it was. Three of them kind of don't really play much. They're more of an entry line together. But looking at the team as a whole, our fours as a whole, I would probably give them an A- for kind of how the season went. It was because of them we were able to crawl out of our very early on. We were 30th in the league, and it was because of our offense we were able to crawl out of it.
Okay,
Heading,
now we'll kind of talk about the defensive part. And Kimmo Timonen, for his age especially, I found it surprising to see not only how well respected he is in within the Flyers fan base, but he's also still fairly talented for his age, especially. So he was kind of the number one guy there in Philly. But kind of talk more about Timonen and kind of go over the defense from last season.
Mm-hmm. I'll kind of just go right down our list here on Cap Geek, starting off with Mark Streit. He came into our team kind of being the replacement for Kimmo Timonen because we weren't really sure if he was leaving last year, if he was going to come back, what was really going to go on with him. And Mark Streit was very good for what we brought him in to be. He was quarterbacking our second power play unit, which is not a very great power play unit. They don't really have much chemistry together. But when Mark Strait randomly got to put up to the first power play unit, he was very good. He can quarterback a power play like it is nobody's business. He has problems with he likes to pinch a lot, and it sometimes bites him back, and he's not really fast enough to get back there and fix his problems. And with him usually being paired with Nicholas Grossman, they're both kind of slow on that aspect. And so he was good for what we brought him in. Probably not worth 5.25 million over 5 years, but he is worth what he brings, I feel. Andrew MacDonald, we kind of got halfway through this. We got him right before the trade deadline and kind of exchanged for Andre Mazzaros. So Andrew MacDonald was he kind of goes back and forth within the Flyers fan base whether or not we like him or not. Because when he first got here, he was really good. He was able to calm everything down, but as kind of the season went on, you kind of noticed all the little problems he was doing. He was pinching too much. He was trying too hard. He was kind of leaving his defensive partner, who was Luke Shen, out to dry sometimes. But he ended up getting a contract extension for the kind of play he did. But it's $5 million for 5 years, I think, which he may or may not be worth that again. We kind of have problems with our Islanders defensemen that come to us. We're not sure if they're worth the money we give them. But they both have no trade clauses, so we're kind of stuck with them anyway. Heading into the next one is Braden Coburn. He is our best defenseman, hands down. And he does not get enough respect within the Flyers community, in my opinion. Everybody just ignores all the little things he does to help this organization. He is very calm. He is deceptively fast. He can fix anything. I remember one time we were facing the Penguins. I think it was the game we shut them out this year, where Sidney Crosby was on a breakaway, and Braden Coburn just kind of shows up, muscles him off the puck, and takes it away from him before he got the shot off. He can really do anything. He is one of our best penalty killers. He is very good at the first pass. He is a true two-way defenseman. And I really wish people would start respecting him more instead of trying to get him away. Because if we lose him, we basically lose our defense. It lives and dies by Braden Coburn. Heading into the next one was Luke Shen. Luke Shen was not what we thought he was going to be when he came to our team. During his first season here, right after the lockout, he was really good. He was our top defenseman that year because all of our defensemen went down so much with injuries that he ended up playing the top role, the number one spot with a bunch of rookies, and he was somehow able to make it work and be very calming influence. And everyone thought, oh hey, he's turning it around. But coming into this year, he looks so out of place at times. But he looked out of place. He had problems keeping up with the puck. He would pinch too much, and he is not that fast enough to get back to fix it. So offensively, he is not anywhere near where we want him to be. He is not what we traded JVR for. But defensively, he is actually one of our better penalty killers. If he stops chasing the puck as much as he does, he would probably be a lot better. But he likes to chase the puck. He likes to put bodies on people more so than try to get the puck off them. So if he kind of calms down that aspect and pulls away a little bit, he might be a lot better and kind of, I guess, be worth what we gave up JVR for. Nicholas Grossman, he is definitely one of the. When he came here, he kind of calmed down the team a lot. He helps a lot more with. He is one of the biggest shot blockers in the NHL. I think he's always like top 5 in shots blocked for defensemen. He not fast whatsoever. You do not want him to handle the puck, so you keep him basically out of the offensive zone as much as possible. But when it comes to the defensive zone, he is very calming. He knows how to clear a crease. So he's definitely a person you want on your team, but not as a second pairing defenseman. He's kind of more of a third pairing, which is kind of a thing within our team. We have a lot of third pairing defensemen trying to force them to play second pairing. after Grossman, we have Kimo Timonen right here, and next to Coburn is our best defenseman. He kind of saw his age this year a little bit. With he was not as fast as he used to be. He was not putting up the points that he used to, but he is a huge blow to the team now that he's gone because of his blood clot and the blood clots that he got this year. But was he quarterbacked the first power play. He quarterbacked it and he knew how to run that thing. And I think that's it for our defense this year. Overall, I'm probably gonna give them I want to say a B minus. They could have been a lot better. They weren't really up to par as what we thought they could have been. So.
Alrighty. And next is the goaltending tandem of Steve Mason and Ray Emery. And I think at the beginning of the season, it looked to me at least that it was fairly clear that Steve Mason would be the number one guy there in Philly.
Mm-hmm.
And but something occurred. I forgot which, but something occurred that allowed Ray Emery to come in and sort of make it a 1A 1B kind of thing there. Especially evidence in the playoffs. I felt that for the situation that Emery was entering there, he did okay. He performed admirably, I would say.
Yeah.
But just kind of expand. That's the word I'm looking for. Expand on that.
Steve Mason first off, going into the season, a lot of the Flyers fan base thought Ray Emery was actually going to beat out Steve Mason for the starting position, kind of based on the way Steve Mason played when he was in Columbus. We didn't give much thought to the way he played at the end of the last season when we traded for him. At the end of the lockout shortened season, we traded for Steve Mason. We didn't think much of him. He was just going to be a stopgap until our one drafted goaltender, Anthony Stolarz, was going to come up. We didn't think much of him. But going into this season, it seemed Peter Laviolette and then Craig Berube both put a lot of faith into Steve Mason. They started him more than Ray Emery. It was clear cut right from the first couple games that Steve Mason was going to be the number one goaltender because he started off so strong this season. He was basically in the early parts of the season when we were only scoring 2 goals a game, if that. Steve Mason was our saving grace and one of the only reasons we were winning the few games that we were. Partway through, we kind of saw the team inch towards Ray Emery. I know during one of the first time we faced the Penguins, the first time we won against the Penguins, actually, Ray Emery started that game instead of Steve Mason, which kind of shocked a lot of people. But Ray Emery was able to pull it off, and as the season kind of went on, we saw Ray Emery start to get a little bit more starts when Steve Mason started to dip down in his, he started to not play as well as he was, and we saw Ray Emery starts a little bit more, but Steve Mason was able to kick it up a notch, as I said a little bit ago, after Bernie Perrant sat him down and talked to him about everything, and Steve Mason was able to pick it up and drive us into the playoffs. But it wasn't really a 1A 1B season type for the entire season. It was mainly Steve Mason as our starting goaltender, with Ray Emery getting the random starts. But heading into the playoffs, we saw, as I said a little bit ago, Jason Megna basically hitting Steve Mason, taking him out of our series. And Ray Emery did the best that he could have done, in my opinion. He did what he set out to do. He played a very calm net. He was beat on the wraparound shots mostly. He couldn't go side to side that well, which is how I think almost every single goal was scored against him. Excuse me. But once Steve Mason was able to come back into net during that third game, he came back for the last couple of minutes, I believe. He was able to somehow kick it up a notch, make this team go kicking and screaming to a Game 7, basically. And I've talked to a few Rangers fans since that thing, and they said if Steve Mason was probably there the entire series, it may have gone a different direction. with the way he played. For the goaltending this year, I'm probably going to give it a. I'm going to go with a B plus because they kind of did do a dip in the middle of the season. They kind of dipped down, and they could have played better during that part, but they did the best they could. So
Okay. And lastly, I know technically Philadelphia had two head coaches for this season. You start out with Laviolette, but we don't have to discuss him because he wasn't there for long. But lastly, in our season in review, we will discuss head coach Craig Berube and the Flyers coaching staff.
Craig Berube. Well, first I'm actually going to start off with Peter Laviolette. From what the owner had come out and said, Ed Snyder, he came out and said it was quite possibly the worst run uh, training camp that he's ever seen his entire time owning the Flyers, which factored majorly into the decision to fire Peter Laviolette. Because he didn't keep any the word he didn't force any of his players what it seemed to come into shape. I know a few of the players didn't come into shape for training camp. Most being Scott Hartnell and Jakub Voracek were the two big ones, and he didn't force them to. He just kind of let it go, which I think pissed off the organization, and which factored a lot into him being fired after the 3-0, going 0-3 in the first 3 games of the season. And with that, you enter Craig Berube, who has been, I think, an assistant coach with his team since 2007, I want to say. So he's been with the organization for a while. He's been behind the bench for a long time. He's seen a few different coaches when he was back there, and he's finally getting his chance to run this team. And the first thing he did was conditioning. That's what he preached. He forced the players to go through skating drill after skating drill after skating drill, forcing them to get into shape. And then after that, he kind of started with a defensive system, which is kind of something he was employing through the entire season. Instead of having the offense first, defense later system we have with Laviolette, we kind of did a offense through defense type of thing. We held up the middle of the rink more. We kind of forced plays to the outside than letting them just skate through and fire. So in that aspect, Craig Berube improved this team a lot. He took an average defense and made them a little bit better than they should have been. But so for his coaching, I want to give him a solid B. We'll see if it raises up after this year. I'm still not 100% sold on him yet. So
Okay. And now I should be more honest. One final, kind of a more of a segue topic, going from just the team's performance in the previous season now to acquisitions, starting from the last trade deadline to the off season. One of the trades that you've discussed, mentioned a couple times was Andrew MacDonald in the trade deadline, and from there were other acquisitions to be made in the off-season, in the free agency period, such as Michael Del Zotto, the most recent one there, but kind of just give us a breakdown of the Flyers' acquisitions from the trade deadline to the off-season.
okay. Well, and the trade deadline, we traded Andre Mazzaros to Boston for a 4th-round pick, I think it was, or something like that. He was not worth the $4 million. He was often injured, often kind of as a healthy scratch. So after we lost him, we kind of for some reason, they felt like they needed another defenseman to take his spot, even though we had youngster Eric Gustafsson waiting as a healthy scratch. He could have picked it up and sat there. But for some reason, Paul Holmgren decided that we needed to trade for a defenseman. And in comes Andrew MacDonald. We traded 2 picks for him, I believe. I think it was like a 2nd and a 3rd round pick for him of 2015 draft, I want to say. And he came in he actually was the number one defenseman, I think, for the Islanders this year. So him coming in to be our third pairing defenseman, he was put on a lot easier spots as Luke Schen's partner. So the two of them were actually not that bad together. He started off on our team very well. He was able to control the puck. He was able to calm it down. I remember the one time he was behind our net and a player was coming in to get him, and he just easily bounced it off the boards and skated up and recovered it, and was able to skate in into the opponent's zone. He's very good at passing the first pass out of the zone. He seems to have a calming effect, but as the season kind of went on, he kind of lost that calming attitude he had. It seemed, and he started to do a little bit too much. He started to try to make up for the shortcomings of Luke Shen, which Andrew McDonald can't really do that. He's not as big as Luke Shen is, so he kind of started to taper off a little bit and not be what we wanted him to be. But for some reason, we gave him a $5 million contract for until 2020. We're still kind of scratching our heads at that. One of the other big acquisitions it seems we got was Michael Del Zotto, which is a signing we never wanted to do. We were forced into it by Chemo Timonen going down with blood clots. We're kind of waiting to see what happens with Michael Del Zotto. It's a 1-year deal. It's a low risk, high reward type thing. If it doesn't work out, he's gone at the end of the season. If it does, we'll see if he's able to. If we probably can't afford to give him a contract next year, but we'll see. Just see if he's able to have the type of magic he had a while ago when he was with the Rangers. One of the biggest trades this offseason that the Flyers have done was the bringing RJ Umberger back to us. To do that, we had to give up Scott Hartnell, one of the most beloved players in the organization right now. Everyone at the time was very confused because when you thought the current Flyers, one of the big people you'd think was Scott Hartnell. He was big, he was mean, he was hilarious, and he screamed prototypical Flyer. But for some reason, the conditioning that he always came in after the off season, he never really showed up to camp uh, really well conditioned, and I think that just kind of worn on the organization. And I think after a talk with Ron Hextall, it kind of seemed to him that it may have not gone the way that they wanted it, so they asked him to waive his no trade clause, which ended up bringing RJ Amberger back to Philly. He was here once before. RJ Amberger has the ability to play in all different. He can play left wing, he can play center, he can play right wing. He can penalty kill, he can play 5-on-5, and he can play on the power play, which is the big reason they brought him in. He is very versatile, and he is also a lot faster than Scott Hartnell ever is. So he might be able to keep up with that top line if that's where he ends up. He might be able to play on the second line. He might be able to play on the third line to kind of help with their defense. So we'll see what happens with him. I think that's all the moves we did in this offseason. We signed a couple no-name, not well-known players for our AHL team, but besides that, we haven't really done much, it seems.
Okay, now we'll get to the other big event in the off season, and that is the NHL entry draft, which was held inside the Wells Fargo Center in Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
So before a home crowd, Philadelphia made a few draft choices, and one of the more popular ones is one that I cannot pronounce and will not even try to pronounce. I think I know which one you're speaking of there, but he's one of the more popular picks by Philadelphia. But kind of just go into detail, kind of break down the draft picks by the Flyers.
1 second, I don't remember who we drafted right now.
Hmm.
Are you talking about Sanheim?
No.
No. You're talking about our second rounder, I forget his name, but yeah, we going into the draft, we all kind of didn't know what Ron Hextall was going to do. It was going to be one of his first big things he was going to do as a GM. So we were all very confused. We all were hoping that he was going to take a left wing because we don't have a very deep left wing, and that we were wondering. We start drafting a couple left wings now, like with a couple scoring off like left wings, like a sniper type deal. We were hoping that's what he was going to do, but instead he ended up drafting Sanheim. Where is it? Last name's Sanheim. I am blanking on his first name right now. Travis Sanheim, that's his name. He was part of the Calgary Hitmen this season, I believe. He kind of got off to a slow start this year, and he wasn't even projected to go into the first round until partway through the year. He somehow kicked it up and just rose through the rankings, and he caught the Flyers' eyes. So we ended up drafting him, and I guess I'm happy with it. We are stocking up our defensive pool. We have a lot of very good defensemen prospects now. So I can't wait to see them all kind of enter enter the NHL soon. After him, I believe we selected a left wing. I don't remember his name off the top of my head. I don't see it here on our Flyers fan page. But from what I kind of keep up with him a little bit in the in juniors, and he is apparently has 6 points in 3 games right now. So he is we're hoping that he is kind of going to be the left wing that we want him to be. I believe he's the left wing. Let's see, I just pulled it up. Oh yeah, he's a right wing actually. I'm not even going to try to pronounce his name, but he is starting to do very well. He's starting to score for his team, so we'll kind of see what happens with him. Everyone else I've never really heard much. We signed our 7th round defenseman, Jasper Peterson. We signed him to an AHL contract, so we're kind of going to see how he does in Lehigh this year. But I think that's really that's who we drafted this year. That's kind of a little rundown on 3 of them, really, that we drafted. So
The one I was speaking of, I actually don't even remember if he was drafted by Philadelphia. That Shane.
Ghost Bear.
Yes.
We drafted him last year, I want to say.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Gostisbehere is how you say his name.
Gostisbehere.
Yeah.
Okay.
But as I refer to the few of my coworkers who try to pronounce his name, just say Ghostbear. It's a lot easier. But he is such a great, he's our best defensive prospect in my opinion. He played for Union College this year that won the Frozen Four, and he was the best player on their team. He won, I think, the best player in the tournament award. He was a +7 in the final game, and within the final 4, the 2 games they played, I think he was overall a +11. So he was on the ice for 11 goals, at least 11 goals. So he factored into most of them, I believe. But the team lived and died by him, from what I understand from that year. And he started off as just a pure offensive defenseman, but as his time in Union College went on, he kind of started to build up his two-way abilities to be a very two-way defenseman that he is now. So he can quarterback a power play, he can pinch, but he can also get back and defend the way that we need him to defend. So we are very excited for him to come to our team.
Okay. And to conclude the off season, a look ahead into the rest of the off season, which is dwindling by the day now. By the
next week we're going to enter the final month.
Yes, but for this final month in the remainder of this week, kind of a 2-part question here. Would you expect to see General Manager Ron Hextall and the Flyers front office make any more moves, and would that compare to if you would like to see them make any more moves?
We do not have the cap space to make moves. We are currently $4.6 million over the cap. And with Pronger going on long-term injury reserve, we have about, I'm gonna say we have like $300,000 to work with. No, we don't even have that much. I'm looking at we're 4.936 over the cap, with Pronger's cap hit being what was it? Pronger's cap hit being 4.941. So we are like $4,000 over the like we have $4,000 to kind of work with. So we are not going to be making any moves to bring in anybody. If we do anything, it will be trading away Vincent Lecavalier. He was he was a very good player in his time, but he did not do. He was bounced around this lineup so much, and he kind of couldn't really settle in a single spot. He was very good on the power play, but that's all he was really able to do this year. So they may have something to do with the back injury he sustained during one of the games, and he would never really let it heal. So if he doesn't get traded, we're going to expect a lot from him. But I do not see us making any moves with the type of cap space we have.
Oh yes, and I do remember how the Flyers cap space there was a fairly large topic of discussion for a while there. Mm-hmm.
We have it down to a science. The first day of training camp, or the last day, one of the two, you can put a player on long-term injury reserve. So that's what most likely we're going to do with Chris Pronger. We're going to keep Chemo Timonen not on long-term injury reserve until we need that cap space. Because if we put him on long-term injury reserve now, we will lose his cap space for the rest of the season.
And that's a good follow-up question since you mentioned Pronger a couple times. Chris Pronger, the former captain of the St. Louis Blues, I might add, in the early 2000s there. I want to say he was even featured on a EA Sports NHL game. I think. I'm not too sure.
Sure.
It was either him or Doug Waite.
Not sure.
No?
I think it was Doug Wade, actually.
Yeah. Anyway, but kind of talk about the deal with Chris Pronger there and your thoughts on that.
If we had him back, this entire situation would be completely different. We wouldn't be scrambling to try to fill his hole, which you cannot fill a hole left by Chris Pronger. That is not possible.
Yeah, we tried doing that with I think after him may have been Eric Brewer maybe.
Mhm.
And yeah, yes, Josh,
no one's Chris Pronger.
we used Eric Brewer as a captain.
But yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, continue, Dave.
Chris Pronger, as I said, it would be completely different. He would still be the captain of our team. Claude Giroux wouldn't be a captain. And we probably would not have these defensive problems that we've had now. We probably would not have lost Matt Carl at the trade deadline because him and Chris Pronger were very good together. They worked so well together. Kimmo Timonen probably wouldn't have as many injuries as he ended up getting because he would have been a second pairing defenseman. Braden Coburn would have been a lot better. Like the fans would have looked at him a lot better than they do now because he would have been a second pairing defenseman and he wouldn't have been asked to do as many things as he would. So the little mistakes that he makes wouldn't have been as glaring, and we probably would have had a better Luke Shen if we still got him, because Chris Pronger could have taught Luke Shen how to really work, and whoever worked with Luke Shen wouldn't have mattered because they would have been a third pairing defenseman, and we would have been able to sign one of those. So our defense would be a complete 180 than what it is right now, and we probably would not be having any defensive problems whatsoever under Craig Berube's system.
So it kind of seems like to me that the Flyers organization they share the same feelings you do. So they're just kind of waiting for the day that he's hopefully able to suit up again.
Yeah, suit up. That's exactly what he can do.
Yeah.
I mean, we saw he's not going to be able to play ever again. He just can't retire, as horrible as that is, because of his 35 plus contract. He signed a contract when he was over 35 years old, so if he retires, we get hit with that cap hit, and we cannot get rid of it. until his contract's over. So we have 3 more seasons left of having him on long-term injury reserve.
Alrighty. And now we will look ahead further into the upcoming season. Now we'll just kind of talk about the upcoming season, of course, in general, and how you feel the team will. If you feel the team could have another very rough start similar to last season, and how you feel the team would fare in the oh gosh, I forgot which division you're in. Metropolitan.
Yep.
Metropolitan. Yeah, just kind of talk about how you feel the beginning of the season will go, since that's one of the more one of the more interesting things in the regular season, at least, and how you feel the team would do in the division.
This year is going to be, I feel, a completely different start. Craig Berube has made a mandate for his players that you have to come into training camp in the best shape of your life. If you don't, you will be in his doghouse. And I don't know if you've ever seen Craig Berube, but he is scary. I would not want to have him be angry at me. But I feel like if the players do come in the best shape of the best shape that they can be in, it will be a completely different starting point. Claude Giroux didn't get. I'm not going to actually finish that sentence, but he is going to be better at the beginning of this season than he was last season. So with him and Jakub Voracek coming in the best shape of the life yesterday, hopefully they will be able to just whoever's on their would be able to help whoever's on their third line, who's ever third on their line, be able to kickstart and get them all going. They're going to run this team at the beginning of the season. So, and then with that second, if we don't lose Vincent Lecavalier, he will probably start off as our second line center with Wayne Simmons and probably I want to say RJ Umberger on his left side. The 3 of them I think are going to be very good together. For some reason, I can see the 3 of them working very well together. With our third line, we're going to probably have Sean Couturier, Matt Reed, and I want to say Michael Raffle is going to be there. With before I say Braden Schen's probably going to be on the top line with Claude Giroux and Jakub Voracek. But going back to the third line, Sean Couturier, Michael Raffle, and Matt Reed are probably going to be back together on the third line, and they're probably going to be doing very good this year. And our fourth line is kind of a matchup of players, and I'm not really sure how they're going to go. But looking into the season, I think our forwards are going to be doing, or it's going to be a complete 180 of how last season started. They're going to score a lot, and I'm pretty sure we're gonna at least get third place in our division again. I could see that. Maybe pushing harder for second. So I kind of see how that works for our team.
And in that case, I already have a feeling what your answer will be, but still, I'll put you on the spot now. I request that the first word of this answer is either yes or no, and then you say your answer, and then you can kind of discuss further about it. But the question is, will the Philadelphia Flyers make it to the playoffs yet again?
Hell yeah, they will. This is a playoff team, in my opinion. They're probably not gonna win the cup with the defense they have, but they can make the playoffs. They showed last year that they have amazing resilience. They can take whatever thrown at them, turn it around, and fight back. And they can do that again this year, even though everyone's counting them out. Yeah, we lost Scott Hartnell, but we have the players to fill in his spot, I believe. We have the 3 people that are going to be looking and taking a spot are RJ Umberger, Michael Raffle, Braden Schenn, and Vincent Lecavalier. There are 4 very good players, and I think we're going to be just fine without Scott Hartnell, as horrible as probably that is to say. But I can see us making the playoffs, in all honesty. Especially with how, it's horrible to say how now weak, for some reason, the Metropolitan Division is. It is not what everyone thought it was going to be when they looked at all the teams that are in it. But I can see us making the playoffs.
Alrighty. And now, to conclude the Flyers overview, we will get into our three miscellaneous questions. And we'll begin, Dave, with who you feel will be the top goal scorer and point scorer in the upcoming season.
If Braden Shen gets on that top line, I can see him scoring the most goals. With the most points, I feel like this is too easy of a question to answer. I'm pretty sure the most points is going to go to Claude Giroux. He has the most points in the past 4 seasons than anybody in the NHL. So I'm pretty sure he's going to keep on with that point getting.
Alrighty. And next, who you see would be the best overall player, in terms of intangibles, in terms of talent on the score sheet, and not just the forward depth, forward defense, goaltending, just the best all-around player who you would think that would be.
Jamie Claude Giroux again. This team lives and dies by him. So if he does not play good, if he does not lead the team, they will not be going anywhere fast.
Okay, and I'm sure the moment Dave has been waiting for since we began this. Dave will now get to answer his favorite question, and this question is, let us say that everything that can go wrong does go wrong in the rather infamous Philadelphia media and the fan base. They're looking for blood. Who are they going to find said blood from? Who are they going to throw under the proverbial bus?
It will be Braden Shen, Vincent LeCavalier, Andrew MacDonald, and I said a fourth one, but I forget it now. Luke Shen, that's who it was. It'll be those 4 players that are going to be thrown under the bus. Vincent LeCavalier because he was not what we thought he was going to be during his first season, and he was bounced all around the lineup, and the media hates him for it. Braden Shen, he was the centerpiece in the Mike Richards trade, and he is not living up to the expectation that we want him to be. Even though every single season he has gotten more points per game than he has the season before, so he is improving. Luke Shen because of how JVR is now taking off, even though it's difficult to compare a forward to a defenseman. And then Andrew MacDonald because of his contract. That'll be the 4 people that are thrown under the bus.
Alrighty. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we have now concluded the overview of the Philadelphia Flyers. And we'll do a quick reset for you before we head into Tampa Bay. You're listening to the Wooden Ball Show. Blakewood, Dave here. And on a Saturday afternoon. And this week we are overviewing the Philadelphia Flyers and Tampa Bay Lightning. And you have just heard my faithful co-host Dave, my partner in crime Dave, overview his respective team, the Philadelphia Flyers. And now I'd like to once again welcome Josh into our podcast, as Dave will now take over for the Tampa Bay Lightning overview.
Okay, are you ready, Josh?
More or less.
So the first thing we want to start off with is this past season. Kind of go into a little bit about how your forwards did this season. I mean, you saw Steven Stamkos go down early in the season, then come back. You saw your captain Martin St. Louis kind of throw a hissy fit and leave the team. So kind of give a talk about the forwards of this season.
Well, like you said, it was definitely an interesting season for us with the star drama. Like you said, Steven Stamkos went down early November. That was a shocking blow to us to see our goal scorer and one of our favorite players just go down like that. I was watching a movie at a movie theater and I heard about that, and that just absolutely shocked me. But the good news was that we had some fairly competent forwards in Andre Palat, Tyler Johnson, Nikita Kucherov, and Valtteri Filppula. and they really helped carry the team along with all of the other rookies that we had. I think we were the team that played the most rookies at one point with 9. Um, so they really stepped up, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what they have to do this season. Then, of course, the Martin Louis incident. There were a bunch of mixed reactions from the Tampa Bay fan base. Some people wanted his head, and others sort of saw where he was coming from. They felt sorry for him. They were more sympathetic towards him. I was definitely among the fan base that wanted his head because he just handled it immaturely, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Um, he could have waited until the end of the season, and I wouldn't have had an issue with that. But instead, he goes and he demands it right before we make our playoff push, and also right before his line mate and one of his best friends comes back. So yeah, I was a bit bitter about it.
Yeah.
Still kind of am, but I'm looking to the future now.
I mean, with that,
But
he.
overall, I'd say our forwards,
Yeah.
last season at least. Oh, go ahead.
I know you were saying something. Just continue. Go ahead.
Hello? Oh, go ahead.
What? What?
What were you saying?
No. Just continue with your
Oh,
talking
I
on
was just going
forward.
to say that um, the ones that stepped up. Yeah, I was going to say that the forwards, they did a fantastic job overall. Um, but yeah, good job, guys.
And kind of I guess, give a grade on your forwards.
So what were you asking?
Just I forget what kind of I was asking now, but kind of give a grade on how your forwards
Um,
did this year.
Let me think. I'd have to say a solid B plus. Um,
Okay.
Maybe possibly going into A minus.
Hmm.
They really helped carry the team, um, like I had said earlier. So, I mean, like I said, it can only go up from here.
Hmm. And now, tell us about your defense and how they did this season, and kind of give them a grade afterwards, also.
Oh boy, our defense. Well, one of the more popular things to say about our defense is that it's a traffic cone defense. That you can basically just skate around us and score, as proven by Matt Carl and some of the others. Rad Kogutis definitely had his moments. Um, it was honestly very frustrating to watch at times. Um, if I had to give them a grade, I'd probably give them a C minus, uh, D plus area.
Oh.
Yeah, it wasn't the best, but we'll get into next season stuff a bit later. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, no, it wasn't the best as we saw in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Um, we could have capitalized on so much stuff. Our blue line was terrible at times, so it was often just head meet desk watching the games. Just like, come on, guys. You'd think that we were a QMJHL team or something sometimes.
You think that because they're in the NHL, they should be able to play their defense?
Yeah, at least I would hope so.
So, after going into your goaltending this season, you started off with you have Ben Bishop as your starter, and he was a very good defense. I think he got nominated for the Vezina Trophy this year.
Yes, he did.
So, so tell us about your goaltending and give us a grade on all that.
Well, like you said, Ben Bishop, he was nominated for the Vezina Trophy, and honestly, I think he deserved it. Home bias, I know, but when you saw what he had to put up with our defense, with the whole entire team chemistry just going to hell,
Hmm.
I think he did a fantastic job holding up a net. Unfortunately, we couldn't count on him because we played him way too much, and he ended up just messing up his wrist. And so he was out for the playoffs and often quite a bit in the regular season, which meant that we had to put in our backup, Anders Lindback. If you know anything about the Lightning fan base, we don't have that much faith in him, which probably didn't help because I think he knew that, and it really got to his head, which just made it worse. I mean, there were games when he actually looked fantastic, but unfortunately he just couldn't keep it up.
Yeah.
And so he's off with Dallas now, I think. So good luck to you guys on that one.
I don't know what you guys' problem with. Go ahead.
Hopefully he can get a bit more stable footing there, because I did kind of like the guy, but his confidence just seemed to shatter in Tampa.
Speaking as
he knew what we thought.
Speaking as a secondary Stars fan, well, you know, Lindback is so much more better than freaking Tim Thomas. So, I don't know. I
To be fair,
kind of like
most
that.
people are better than Tim Thomas.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
You'll definitely have less crazy to deal with. Also, a lot less going out into the middle of the ice to play the puck.
Oh boy.
Oh yeah.
Oh.
I don't know what you guys' problems with Anders Lindback
Tim,
was.
what are you doing? Tim, get in the net.
He was good. Yeah.
But yeah, so Anders Lindback, like I said, very rough time for him. I wish him the best. And then, of course, our last goalie, Kristers Gudalevsky, the Latvian Wall.
Was he really a Latvian Wall?
In the Olympics, he was. The single guy to scare the living hell out of all of Canada. Now, I will say, in the playoffs, he could have done better, but I mean, making the switch from minors to Olympics to NHL playoffs, that would completely throw me off my game, but still, I think he did a fantastic job. I think he's going to be down in Syracuse this year along with one of our other prospects. So I think the plan is to have him stay down there for a couple years, let him develop a bit more, and then he'll be coming in around the time that Ben Bishop's contract is up.
Kind of give them I guess, a 1A, 1B type of situation.
Yeah.
Okay.
But so overall, our goalie grade, despite how well Ben Bishop and Kristers Gudalevsky's handled things, I'd have to give them a B, just because of Anders pulling it down a bit.
Okay.
But still, this season, fingers crossed, hopefully going to look a lot better.
You mentioned about the playoffs, so kind of give us a rundown what really happened in that sweep that you guys had this year.
Well, in case any one of our listeners was living under a rock for the past, ever, we got swept in the playoffs 4-0 by the Montreal Canadiens. The thing is, though, we put up a lot of fight. I want to say 3 of the 4 games either went to the last minute, maybe 2 minutes, or into overtime. I think the only exception to that was when Montreal won like 4-1 in Game 3. But other than that, it went down to the wire. So, I mean, we definitely had the willpower. Unfortunately, we did lose our main goaltender, Ben Bishop, to the wrist injury. And also, we did have the combination of just losing our captain just a month earlier and working with a new line mate, Ryan Callahan, who's been fantastic. He's actually one of my favorite players right now. I look at him and I go, wow, that guy has got a lot of spirit for this team, and he just came here. He signed a 6-year deal with us, and I'm excited to see him. But so and of course we also had all our rookies with us. So I thought we did very well considering our position.
Mhm.
I just wish that we could have won one game. That's all I wanted.
Just so you didn't have that broom on your flare.
Yes. Thankfully, it's gone now.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about that. I mean, it could have been worse. You could have had an upside down broom.
Yeah. Yeah. We are not the Sharks.
Thank God for that.
That's. Yes, and I'm sorry to my Shark friends, but at least we're not you.
Okay, now that
Because
we've
that's just something else right there.
now that we've talked about the past season, we're gonna head into the off season now. And your biggest kind of trade that you guys made was for Jason Garrison from the Vancouver Canucks. I'm pretty sure you guys only gave up 1 or 2 picks for him. For him, rights to a player and then another pick, I believe. I think that's what it was. So, do you think he's going to help your defense?
I think he has potential. I mean, it honestly cannot get worse. That's the thing. We can only go up, in my opinion. So, from what I know, I think he's more of an offensive defenseman.
I know he was Vancouver's best defenseman, I believe. So,
Right, and if I remember correctly, he has a hell of a slap shot. So he can definitely bring a lot to the table. I think that he can hold the blue line really well. Um, so I'm really looking forward to that. Um, I want to say, I think we traded a Teddy Purcell. No, that was the Gagne trade. Or, um, yeah, I forget what that trade detailed exactly, but so I'm looking forward to it. In real quick.
let's pull that up. See, that
Um,
trade was where is it? It had
they got the 50th overall pick
yeah,
and return. Oh, and rights to Jeff Costello.
that's what it
Oh
was.
no,
Yeah,
actually no wait. So we got Jason Garrison and Jeff Costello along with the Canucks 7th round pick in 2015 for um, Jason. Or
for a pick, for a second round pick
yeah, basically.
this year.
So
Yeah.
I think we came off well with that, in my
hmm
opinion.
Yeah. I mean, he signed until when? He signed until 2018, so it's 2 year deal, 3 year deal. So I mean, 4.6 million is not that bad for a defenseman, I guess. If he's able to, you gave your team a D, I believe it was. So it anything could help, really. So we'll see what happens with him. Heading into the next thing that
Yeah,
happened.
we got Garrison for the next 4 games.
Yeah. So next thing that happened. Can you talk about how much you loved having Sam Gagne on your team and how it was
It
amazing
was
for
a
you
short
guys?
romance, but it was short, but
Yeah.
we truly loved it. The word is that he's getting a statue and that we're retiring the number.
He was an invaluable
No,
resource to the team, if I do say so myself.
He had to be their best player they've ever had.
Oh boy.
but really,
Yeah.
it was such a quick turnaround that I just didn't know how to feel.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
I
like
mean,
1 second it's just like, oh hey, we've got Kanye, cool. And then all of a sudden it's just like, wait, what? We okay, sure, I guess.
you guys
Traded him
didn't really
away.
get much for him. You guys only got a 6th round pick for him. You
Yeah,
traded Teddy
and
Purcell for him to the Oilers, and then you traded him directly to the Coyotes, along with BJ Combine, just for
I
a
mean,
6th round pick. Yeah,
yeah,
I'm not really sure what kind of happened there.
and in return we got a left winger. So I mean,
Where'd you get the left winger from?
the draft.
Oh, the
Well,
pick that was a 2015 pick. You didn't even get it. You didn't even
oh,
use it yet.
oh, oops.
Yeah, so
Well, maybe
I
still,
don't
you
understand.
never know.
I
That
mean, Sam
that sixth
Gagne.
round.
Yeah, I mean, you're not Detroit though, but you do have a Detroit wing from your running your team. So Never know.
Yes, and I will get to the Iser plan in a bit. Don't worry.
Oh yay. So
But
you
yeah, no,
signed. Yeah, go
that
ahead.
was an interesting trade.
I must
I
interrupt
said that was
again.
just an interesting move.
I must interrupt again to say that as a Blues fan, boo Steve Eiserman, boo.
Gretzky has it, lost it. Eisman
Oh,
shoots and scores. But yeah, so interesting move by Eiserman. I'm curious to see what he's planned for that pick.
Yeah.
What in the world he could have planned that far in advance, I don't know, but I trust Eiserman. I trust the Eiser plan.
So during this offseason, you signed Brian Boyle, Evgeny Nabokov, Anton Strawman, and Brendan Morrow. Do you think this all of these people are gonna help your team be better than they were last season?
You know what? I think they can. Um, we've managed to steal away even more of the Rangers team, so we're slowly stealing the team that Martin St. Louis wanted in the first place. Um, but I mean, Brian Boyle, he's probably going to be on the fourth line, which is something that we could definitely help out with.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Evgeny, I mean,
Evgeny.
he's proven to be a fairly Evgeny potato, Russian potatoes, technically. Um, but I mean, he's a veteran goaltender. He's probably got some advice for Ben.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, he also did put us into a 13-round shootout back in back in March,
Wow.
and that was impressive, needless to say. So I think the guy's got some experience that we could definitely use. He's competent in my eyes, so I say, welcome him to the team. Strawman, I mean, his Corsi is usually pretty high. I want to say that he was 22nd last season, and so he's got ton of experience that we could use. I see him being second or first or second pairing for defense.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of hoping that he's first paired with Victor Hedman
Okay.
because Victor is our big defensive player um, and also one of my favorites. I mean, that guy is just awesome. And then Brendan Morrow, I want to say, is also going to be on the fourth line. And he was a Blue, right? Like,
For a little bit. Think of like a season or two.
yes, for
yeah.
the entire season there.
Yeah, he was known for his being on the Dallas Stars, so
Yes.
he was their captain for a while. After he was their captain for a while, but you think he's gonna be on their fourth line?
I think so. And of course, like, also the thing with us is that I have no idea. There's so many ways that our lines can go.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're honestly so stacked in forwards. I mean, like, when you look at the list, I mean, we've got Filppula, Stamkos, Callahan, Palat, Johnson, Nikita Kucherov, Jonathan Drouin. I mean, there's so much stuff that we can do. It's honestly a guessing game. I mean, is Stamkos going to be paired up with Drouin? Are we going to be seeing that right away? Are Palat and Johnson going to be working together? I'm pretty sure that Filppula and Callahan will be staying on the same line because that seemed to be a good chemistry that they had.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, I guess heading into this next season, how do you truly feel about the season coming up?
I think we have a lot of promise, but I also think that people are really overrating us. I mean, I've seen so many articles that say, like, this is how Tampa's going to win the Stanley Cup. And I'm just like, guys, I appreciate the publicity, but don't go saying that just yet.
I mean, you have to
Because,
fix the defense before you can say that. As a team with a bad defense, you have to fix the defense.
right, and also, I mean, we just have to figure out all this new chemistry with so many new signings. And I mean, also, it's going to be Steven Stamkos' first full season as a captain. I mean, we're going to have to see how he deals with that responsibility.
That's true. It's
So
definitely tough.
there's a lot of stuff to prove this season. A lot of people seem to think that we've got it, but I'm definitely on the more cautious side. I think we're going to make the playoffs, though.
Where do you think you're going to stand in that division?
We're definitely going to end up at least third in the division.
Okay.
I
Over
want
who?
to say that's the. I think Boston and Montreal will definitely be above us.
Okay.
And I want to say that the wild card is probably going to be a Metro team. I'm thinking, because there's a lot of teams that show promise.
Oh yeah, the East has kind of turned it around a little bit this year, so.
Yeah, so I want to say it might be New York, the Rangers that grabbed the wild card.
Okay.
Because I think you guys are definitely going to make the Flyers, definitely going to make the playoffs. You're going to be one of the top
Oh,
three.
thank you. You're allowed on the show still.
Thank you, thank you. But really, though, you guys are a strong team. I've said it before, you guys are my favorite team to hate. Just, I mean, the classic Flyers,
Everyone hates us.
Goon
We're
Squad.
kind of used to it.
Yeah, but you're my favorite team to hate. So, so I think the Caps will also be making the playoffs this year. I could see them being a third seed just like us. I'm not sure if Pittsburgh's going to make it.
I can still see them making it.
Yeah. They might be wild card too, though. I just don't know with the moves that they made in the offseason. But still, they have that. They still have Crosby and Malkin, so.
They still have that offensive fight.
Right.
Yeah.
But so it's going to be a very interesting offseason or season. But yeah, like I said, I think we're going to be third in our division. Hopefully, we can make it past the first round this time.
Or at least win a
And
game.
yes, I would not complain if we did get out within the first round because we have a lot of stuff to prove. Hopefully, our team can stay intact in more ways than one. No people forcing trades, no broken bones or anything like that. So it's looking to be a bright future, though. I will say that.
Okay. So, and I actually forgot to ask a question within the off season. So I'm just gonna quickly jump back and ask that. Do you see you guys making any more trades before the season starts?
I honestly don't know who we would trade for. I mean, the one thing that I could hope and pray for is that we somehow get somebody to take Matt Carl off our hands, but
That ain't happening.
yeah, no, that's a dream and a prayer.
You guys are actually over the cap.
If I remember correctly, we're going to be placing Matthias Oland on a long-term injured reserve. So that should give us $1.5 million, maybe.
Yeah, he has a little over 3 million. You guys are about 1 million, so you're actually going to lose most of his cap space probably.
Yeah, so
yeah, you guys
that'll
are going
put
to
us
be
under,
exactly at
but
the cap.
yeah.
Okay.
But I honestly don't see us making any more trades. But then again, like I said, that's all up to Yzerman and what in the world his plan is. Yes. I mean, everything that he's done for us has turned out pretty well so far.
Okay.
So like I said, just do what you want to do, Steve. I trust you.
So, what do you think your lineup's going to look like this year, and do you think Druin will finally make the team?
I think Druin at the beginning of the season is going to be put on the third line, and we're going to see how he does for a couple of games. Fun fact, I got to go to the prospect camp for Tampa this summer,
Yeah.
And I got to see Jonathan Druin play, and he looked absolutely amazing. The thing is, though, he was playing with prospects. We need to see how he's going to play with NHL caliber players. I mean, he put up fantastic numbers last season with Halifax, but that's an entirely different level. So I think we're going to put him on third line, see how he does, and if he does well, we're going to bump him up with Stamkos.
Okay.
So I want to say top line. Stamkos is definitely going to be our top center. No question about that. Now that he's back, he's hopefully fully healthy. Um, he is easily going to make that. The question is, where do we go from there?
Mm-hmm.
Because we have a tendency to play people a bit differently. So if you look on CapGeek, our centers are Stamkos, Johnson, Killorn, and Boyle. I think Filppula's going to be a center again, and we might put Johnson up on the left or right wing with Stamkos. Like I said earlier, I think Filppula and Callahan are going to stay on the same line, probably the second. I think Palat's going to stay there on that second line with them.
Mm-hmm.
And then it gets a bit difficult because our third and fourth lines can be moved around a bit. I know we had Kucherov on the third line a bit last season, and I think we're going to keep him there. I think Druin's going to center for the third line, and we might have Killorn on one of the wings. And then, like I said earlier, Morrow and Boyle are definitely going to be fourth line, probably with Conley or Panic.
Okay. So, do you think you're gonna be buyers and sellers at the trade deadline? And on top of that, you think your team's going to make the playoffs, right?
I do believe that we are going to be making the playoffs. I think we're going to make it a bit further this season. Um, it's a question of who we're paired up against is the thing. If we're paired up against Boston, that's going to be a hell of a fight.
Mm-hmm.
They've always been a strong team against us. They're far more physical, while we're a bit more agile. So, I mean, it all depends on who we come up against. Personally, I'd like a rematch of Montreal and Tampa, and hopefully we sweep them. Of course, now that I said that, they're probably going to sweep us now, knowing my luck.
You broke the first rule.
Yep. That's why you never say shut out. But no, I think we're going to make it to the semifinals.
Okay.
And I honestly don't know who we're going to meet there. That's the thing. But
Anything can happen
I
in the
think we
playoffs.
have,
So.
yeah, of course. So yeah, I think we're going to make the semifinals. Knock on wood. As for trade deadline, I don't would trade.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that Matt Carl is the cross, but
Past
other
him, you
than
don't
that,
know who.
I don't
Okay.
see anyone that we would trade. So, like I
Okay.
said, it's up to the Iser plan.
So now, kind of into the fun questions as I see it. Who do you think is going to score the most goals on your team this year? Like that's a hard question, but who's going to score the most goals?
Well, so last season it was and also put up the most points, but he's not with us.
Mm-hmm.
So suck it, Martin St. Louis. Um, as it in. But like I said, that's a hope. I think he's definitely going to be top 3, but we also have.
Well then, it appears as though some technical difficulties there of some sort.
Oh, he dropped. I think he was saying that Martin St. Louis was something about Martin St. Louis, and I think Jerwin was going to get the most points or goals or something. Couldn't really
Well, that
understand
sounds
what he
like
was doing. But I can see
that
the most
sounds
goals
like that.
for the Lightning being Stamkos.
Oh, hands down, most assuredly.
Yeah.
I don't know of anyone else on that team even that could even be at the same level he's at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'll try to bring Josh back in. But I guess if he doesn't come back in, I guess we'll just end this. We'll give it a couple minutes. So, who do you think, if you're looking at the team, Blake, who do you think is going to get the most points on that team?
The most points. It, I think it, of course, definitely be somebody on the first line with Stamkos.
Oh, definitely,
Uh,
probably.
Probably not Stamkos himself, because he's more the
He's the
he's
finisher.
the guy that scores the goals there. He's not the setup kind of captain there,
Mm.
but definitely somebody on the first line there, which I forget who Josh had as the predicted first line there.
He had it as, I think he said Stamkos obviously at the top, with Tyler Johnson on the left wing. He never said who would really be on the right wing, though. But
I could see Tyler Johnson getting there. My personal opinion of Tyler Johnson is that I'm getting a certain vibe from Tyler Johnson that leads me to believe that he might have a pretty good breakout season. If not now, then perhaps next season.
okay,
Well,
Josh, you there?
thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, my internet dropped. Like I was complaining about you before the podcast. Free internet. It's not the best thing.
Didn't really understand what you were saying when you said who was going to score the most goals on this team this year. So kind of go back into that.
Okay. My bet is Stamkos. I think he's going to prove that he does deserve the C. He's going to lead by example. After
Okay.
that, I want to say it's going to be definitely Filppula, because he had a lot of great setups last season. I think he can capitalize on a lot of stuff.
Okay.
As far as points go, Druin has the possibility of getting a ton of points if he works with Stamkos,
Mm-hmm.
because he is great at setting up goals. From what I saw at the camp back in July. But other than that, though, probably going to be Palat. He was great on the assists. So I want to say Druin or Palat get the most points.
Okay. So, my favorite question to ask. Say everything just goes downhill and your team is bad. Who is going to be thrown under the bus?
Well, sadly, we can't say that it was Lindbach this time. There is the perennial favorite of Matt Carl. I know one of the players that we liked to pass the blame on was JT Brown. He has a tendency to hit the post and almost nothing else. So hopefully get that together. I think the blame is going to be a lot on the defense this season, though, if it does happen. But like I said, Carl is probably going to be the main focus. So yeah, if you're in the game day threads, look for the Carl complaints.
Okay. So I think that's everything I have for you, unless Blake has something he wants to ask.
Oh no, oh no, I'm pretty good from here. But I'll take over now and go into the closing of the episode. Dave, I'll give you some time to look at the
Already
entry
got it.
draft order and tease ahead for what we'll be having next week.
It will be the Sharks and the Blues with our very own Blake here being asked the questions.
Oh yes, this is, of course, as you might expect, this is the moment that I've been looking forward to. And how about that, folks? We have back-to-back weeks of the interviewer becoming the interviewee. I'm quite looking forward to the opportunity to talk about my team and hopefully represent the fan base. I don't know. They're always kind of, they go one way, then they go the other way. So I don't know. But, it's going to be great. And we'll also get to talk about the Sharks and their stuff.
Okay, so that's who it is.
Yes, so San Jose Sharks, St. Louis Blues for next week, ladies and germs. And we will now be entering the closing legalese for our show. Once again, we'd like to thank Josh for joining us for
Yes, thank you,
the
Josh.
Tampa Bay Lightning overview. You can find him on Twitter. His username is at I'm not Joshin ya, and I am not Joshin ya. That is his username. uh, I had to throw that one in there,
You
kind
were
of for the
Blake.
edgy points.
3 edgy, 5 me, Blake.
Yes, but and of course your hosts of the Wooden Ball Show. I am Blake. You can find me on Twitter. My username is at ShattenMyKirk, and you can find me on Reddit at BTownBomb. And for Dave, you can find him on Twitter. His handle there is at Blinson1, and you can find him on Reddit. His username is Blinson on Reddit. And for our hockey cast, once again, we'll have the Puckin' Awesome podcast coming up this upcoming Monday, which I do believe Josh is kind of a co-host on there.
Oh yeah,
Just for
that's
1
right.
week.
I'm supposed to do that.
Are you?
I'm getting into controversial stuff.
Oh,
Okay,
yes.
have fun with that.
Oh, yes. We'll have some controversy on the Puckin' Awesome podcast. And as you know, folks, controversy is always very exciting. So tune in next Monday for the Puckin' Awesome podcast with
Get your
Josh.
pitchforks here. Get your pitchforks here.
And I'd like to pass along some news that we received in the pre-show preparations. Ladies and gentlemen, it sounds like the Our Hockey Cast After Hour will be making a return soon.
Ooh,
Very
very exciting stuff.
good news there. I gather that the After Hour is one of the more popular shows here at Our Hockey Cast.
Mhm.
And also look to gather up the other shows that we had during the season, the Toddler Tuesdays, KH Lockria, and all sorts of other programming to look out for when the upcoming season arrives. For our HockeyCast, you can find us on Twitter. Our handle there is at our HockeyCast. You can find us on Reddit. Our subreddit there is our HockeyCast or our HockeyCast. You can find our website, ourhockeycast.com, where you can browse, listen to our archives of the programming here on the podcast. And you can do that same thing on our YouTube channel. The YouTube channel there is Our HockeyCast. Once again, be sure to tune in next week. We will be overviewing the San Jose Sharks and the St. Louis Blues. For Dave Ball, I am Blake Wood, and we are signing off.
Have a good night, everybody.